In the history of global business, no corporation has ever made this much money by being this dangerous. It is an empire built entirely on controversy, lawsuits, and a product that half of America tried to ban. Most companies spend millions trying to keep their public image perfectly clean. But this company, they weaponized public outrage. They took the fury of the US government, turned it into free marketing, and built a gaming franchise that generates more cash than the entire global box office combined. But behind the multi-billion-dollar launches and the absolute chokehold they have on modern entertainment lies a brutal corporate strategy, a story of massive financial gambles, a ruthless corporate culture, and a formula that changed the entertainment industry forever. How did a small group of British creators build America's most lucrative cultural icon? This is the calculated, high-stakes business breakdown of Rockstar Games. To understand how a $10 billion empire is built, you have to go back to a time before the sleek corporate offices, before the Wall Street backing, and before the name Rockstar Games even existed. You have to go back to 1990s London, inside the offices of a corporate music publisher called BMG, or Bertelsmann Music Group. Two young British brothers, Sam and Dan Houser, were working there. They weren't video game developers. They were music executives deeply embedded in the culture of hip-hop, punk rock, and film. They looked at the video game industry of the early 90s and saw something incredibly boring. Back then, video games were treated like toys for children. The market was flooded with colorful mascots, plumbers jumping on mushrooms, and wholesome family entertainment. But the Houser brothers didn't want to make toys. They wanted to make something cool. They wanted to treat video games exactly like Hollywood treated movies, or how record labels treated parental advisory rap albums. They wanted attitude, grit, and adult entertainment. The turning point came when BMG Interactive partnered with a small, struggling independent development studio in Dundee, Scotland, called DMA Design. The programmers at DMA Design were working on a chaotic, top-down PC game, originally titled Race and Chase. The concept was simple. You drove around a pixelated city, completing standard driving missions. But during development, a massive glitch happened in the game's artificial intelligence. The police cars, which were supposed to gently pull the player over, accidentally became incredibly aggressive. They began ramming the player's car, running over pedestrians, and causing total citywide chaos. The developers realized that trying to fix this glitch made the game boring. The glitch was the fun. Sam and Dan Houser took notice of this raw, rebellious concept. They helped reshape the project, scrapping the safe driving simulator and leaning entirely into the criminal underworld. They renamed the game to something that would sound terrifying on a nightly news broadcast: Grand Theft Auto. When the original 2D Grand Theft Auto launched in 1997, it wasn't an instant global masterpiece, but it possessed something no other game had: absolute freedom to be the bad guy. It caught the eye of an aggressive American game publisher looking for mature, edgy content to dominate the US market. Take-Two Interactive. In 1998, Take-Two made a chess move that changed entertainment history. They bought the assets of BMG Interactive, flew the Houser brothers across the Atlantic Ocean, and dropped them into the heart of New York City. Given a blank check and total creative control, Sam and Dan Houser finally founded their own specialized high-end publishing label. They didn't name it Interactive Software or Digital Media. They named it after the wild, rebellious icons of the music industry they idolized. Rockstar Games was officially born. Every marketing textbook on earth teaches corporations the exact same thing: avoid controversy, protect the brand, and keep the public happy. But Sam and Dan Houser did the exact opposite. They realized a fundamental truth about human psychology, especially American psychology. If you tell a teenager that a product is too dangerous, too violent, and completely forbidden, they will do absolutely anything to get their hands on it. Before the first Grand Theft Auto even hit store shelves in 1997, the game had a massive problem. The graphics were completely outdated. Compared to the massive 3D games releasing at the time, GTA looked like an old, pixelated top-down computer program. If Rockstar marketed it like a normal video game, it was going to flop. So they didn't market the game. They marketed the outrage. Rockstar went out and hired a notorious high-profile British PR publicist named Max Clifford. Clifford wasn't a gaming guy. He was a tabloid mastermind who knew exactly how to manipulate the media. Rockstar gave him one specific job: make the public absolutely terrified of Grand Theft Auto. Clifford began secretly planting highly exaggerated stories about the game's extreme violence directly into the British tabloids. He intentionally leaked details of the game to conservative politicians and members of the UK House of Lords. He fed them exactly what they wanted to hear: that this game was a murder simulator designed to corrupt the youth. The trap worked perfectly. Politicians completely took the bait. They held public speeches demanding the game be banned. Nightly news anchors ran terrified segments warning parents about the ultimate evil entering the market. And every single time a politician screamed about the game on television, it acted as millions of dollars of completely free advertising targeted directly at Rockstar's core audience. By the time the game launched, it was a massive commercial success entirely because it was labeled as dangerous. But this was just a trial run. When Rockstar transitioned into the 3D era with Grand Theft Auto 3 in 2001, the controversy escalated into a full-scale cultural war. For the first time, players weren't just looking at pixelated dots from above. They were walking through a fully realized 3D simulation of a living American city. They could steal cars, fight police officers, and engage with sex workers. The mainstream American media completely lost its mind. Watchdog groups labeled Rockstar as the ultimate enemy of the moral majority. Parents huddled at birthday parties, trying to figure out how their kids were getting copies of an M-rated game. And right when the outrage reached a boiling point, a radical attorney named Jack Thompson entered the picture. Thompson made it his life's mission to completely destroy Rockstar Games, launching massive multi-million-dollar lawsuits against the company every time a real-world crime was loosely connected to a teenager playing the game. But the Hauser brothers never backed down, never apologized, and never issued defensive corporate press releases. Instead, they laughed at the critics. They put a parody of the Statue of Liberty inside Grand Theft Auto 4 that held a coffee cup and bore a striking, unmistakable resemblance to Hillary Clinton, one of their fiercest political critics. Rockstar had cracked the ultimate business code. In the attention economy of the 21st century, negative publicity was the highest-yielding currency on Earth. They didn't just survive the outrage. They engineered it, weaponized it, and used it to turn an outdated indie project into the most anticipated entertainment franchise in human history. By the mid-2000s, the entire video game industry realized what Rockstar had discovered, and every major publisher wanted a piece of the action. The market was suddenly flooded with clones. Games like True Crime, Saints Row, The Getaway, and Driver all tried to copy the exact same formula: an open-world city, stolen cars, and criminal missions. On paper, Rockstar should have faced intense competition. But instead of fighting for market share, they completely isolated themselves at the top. They did this by shifting their business model from high-volume releases to absolute unmatched perfectionism. While other companies were pumping out 2 or 3 games a year to keep up with trends, Rockstar made a massive corporate gamble. They decided to stop rushing. They decided to spend unprecedented amounts of time and money on single massive projects, betting that the sheer scale of their quality would create a monopoly no one else could afford to challenge. To pull this off, Rockstar unified all of their global studios, from San Diego and Toronto to Edinburgh and NYC, into a single massive collaborative machine called Rockstar Studios. When they began developing Grand Theft Auto 5, the budget skyrocketed to a staggering $265 million. At the time, it was the most expensive video game ever produced, rivaling the biggest blockbuster movies in Hollywood history. They spent years mapping out the geography of Southern California, recording thousands of hours of audio, and building a physics engine so complex that it made every other open-world game on the market look like a cheap imitation. When GTA 5 launched in September 2013, the gamble paid off in a way Wall Street had never seen before. The game generated $800 million in its first 24 hours. Within 3 days, it crossed $1 billion, shattering every single record in the history of worldwide entertainment. But the real masterstroke wasn't just the initial sales. It was what came next: GTA Online. Rockstar transformed a single-player story into a living, breathing virtual economy. They gave players a massive sandbox where they could buy luxury apartments, run underground businesses, and purchase hypercars using digital currency. If players didn't want to spend hundreds of hours grinding for in-game money, Rockstar provided a seamless shortcut: shark cards, real-world microtransactions that allowed players to exchange actual cash for digital wealth. Suddenly, Rockstar wasn't just a company that sold a game once every few years. They had built a recurring revenue machine that pumped out hundreds of millions of dollars every single quarter, year after year, across 3 different console generations. By injecting this unprecedented amount of capital back into their ecosystem, they raised the barrier of entry so high that competing studios simply gave up trying to build competing titles. Rockstar had officially created a monopoly. They didn't just own the open-world genre, they owned the culture, leaving the rest of the industry scrambling just to figure out how they did it. With billions of dollars flowing smoothly into their ecosystem from GTA Online and the critical masterpiece of Red Dead Redemption 2, Rockstar entered an era of unprecedented luxury. They no longer had to answer to standard industry timelines. They didn't need to attend major gaming conventions or spend millions on flashy promotional events. They had built a brand so powerful that they could completely dictate the internet's attention with a single social media post. We saw the terrifying reality of this power when they finally decided to pull the curtain back on their next massive project, Grand Theft Auto 6. Without any warning, Rockstar dropped a simple tweet announcing the release date for a trailer. Within hours, that single post became the most liked gaming tweet in human history. When the actual 90-second trailer went live on YouTube, it shattered the record for the most viewed non-music video in 24 hours, racking up over 90 million views in a single day. The corporate world stood completely stunned. Major movie studios adjusted their theatrical release schedules, and competing video game publishers actively moved their own launch dates out of the way, terrified of being completely crushed by the cultural tidal wave of a Rockstar release. But as Rockstar stands on the precipice of a $10 billion empire, they face an entirely new kind of corporate challenge. The original masterminds behind the curtain, writer Dan Houser, producer Leslie Benzies, and radio genius Laszlo Jones, have all quietly exited the company over the last several years. The core creative team that built the edgy, fearless identity of Rockstar Games is gone, replaced by a massive corporate infrastructure trying to navigate a highly sensitive, modern media landscape. The ultimate question for the future of Rockstar is no longer about money. They have already proven they can generate more wealth than any other media entity on the planet. The real question is whether a corporate giant with thousands of global employees can maintain the sharp, dangerous outlaw spirit that made them famous in the first place. Can they continue to weaponize the outrage, or have they finally become part of the corporate machine they spent decades mocking? No matter the answer, the blueprint they left behind is undeniable. By treating video games not as toys, but as high-stakes cultural movements, a small group of rebellious British creators completely rewrote the rules of business, transforming a pixelated driving glitch into the most lucrative, dominant entertainment empire on Earth.